One of the most underrated moves of this year's trade deadline was the Cavs getting DeAndre Hunter. Hunter's been having a breakout season on a middling team with the exact type of game you'd expect to translate to higher level basketball. So for a 42-10 team, you could very easily make the argument that he moves the needle. My main takeaway from the trade was that the Cavs simply got bigger and more athletic. Hunter's taller, lengthier, and more physically capable than both LeVert and Niang, which gives him more utility in certain spots on offense. The most obvious one being in transition, where he's a really good scorer, and for a team in Cleveland that loves to get out and run, that's a perfect match. Even in the half court though, there are certain things you can do with Hunter as an off-ball player that you couldn't do with the other two. For example, he can play out of the dunker spot where rim protectors are forced to treat him as a legitimate interior threat, and he's a really smart mover without the ball, so even when he's playing from the perimeter, the defense has to constantly be aware of where he's at, or he'll sneak into the paint on timely cuts. On the perimeter is where he spends most of his time on offense, and that's because he's developed into a really good spot-up shooter. Over the last 2 seasons, he's attempted over 400 catch-and-shoot threes, and he's made a pretty impressive 39.4% of them. He might not have the sheer accuracy of a dead-eye shooter, but he gets these shots off at great volume, and that's not only because he knows how to position himself and is confident shooting in tight windows, it's also thanks to his height. At 6'8" with a high release point, he's able to shoot over a lot of closeouts, especially from smaller defenders. And if a defender tries to close that space with a more aggressive closeout, he's comfortable faking, taking a dribble, and reloading for a higher quality look. Or he'll use the threat of the 3 to create a driving lane, as he's just dangerous in general against closeouts. He doesn't have a very explosive first step, so when he drives off the catch, he's not too difficult to cut off. But he actually thrives in those situations. One thing he really likes to do when a driving lane gets taken away is drop the shoulder and create contact with the strength to get some separation. And after creating that contact, he can get up into a shot in a variety of ways with the size to score over the top of most defenders. The way he's embraced contact and been a lot more aggressive with shoulder bumps has been a big development for him in this season specifically, and as a result, his free throw rates have taken a pretty big jump, now landing in the 89th percentile at almost 6 free throw attempts every 75 possessions. With that said though, when he's looking to attack on a drive and gets cut off, his go-to counter is to get to a mid-range jumper. On the season, he's attempting about 5 mid-range shots per 75 and hitting over 47% of them, and he can get into these shots in a bunch of different ways. If he's driving right, you'll often see him spin back to his left for a fadeaway jumper, and with that high release point, defenders tend to get overzealous on contests, which he pairs with a nice use of up fakes to create some added separation. The only real flaw I'd say Hunter has as an off-the-catch guy is that there are a lot of plays where it feels like he should be looking to attack, but instead decides to shoot the contested 3. It's not a huge deal though, because like I said, he's a really good shooter, and when those opportunities present themselves, more times than not, he's aggressively looking to create. Because of that combination of shooting ability and versatility off the catch, a big part of Atlanta's offense was curling him off of screens. Oftentimes that meant a cross screen to get him moving towards the middle of the floor, and if he's left with space to turn the corner, he'll get downhill and utilize the mid-range. These actions are real similar to how the Cavs already like to use someone like Max Strus, and although Hunter isn't quite that caliber of shooter, he's still a big-time scoring threat. And he's capable of making reads on the fly, like here where the middle of the floor is packed, so he instead decides to attack open space on the baseline. Probably Atlanta's most prominent action though was a simple handoff. If nobody jumps out to Hunter, he'll take and make that shot. If his defender chases him off the line and the big is sitting back in a drop, he'll take a dribble or two and get to that pull-up midi. His physical tools make him pretty dangerous when turning the corner against a backpedaling big like this. He's got an absurd 7'2" wingspan, which gives him access to unique angles as a finisher. And remember, he's willing to initiate and play through contact with enough strength behind the shoulder to move bigger defenders off their spot and get some separation. Another thing that stands out in these spots is his use of pace. Occasionally you'll see him pause off a screen and put his defender in jail, and because he's got such a nice in-between game, he's able to really pressure the defense as a scorer. Like I said, the Cavs already run a decent amount of off-screen action for a guy like Strus. They also like to use both Mobley and Allen as dribble handoff hubs, so they'll be able to get Hunter on the move and attacking space in the same way. Though, I will say, probably the biggest similarity between Cleveland and Atlanta's offenses is the way they both utilize their wings as screeners. Once again, you'll see his versatility as an off-the-catch guy. He's looking to pop into open space, where he'll either knock down the three or draw an aggressive closeout, quickly attack on a drive, and apply pressure inside the arc. Whether it's spotting up, running around a screen, or screening himself, it's very clear that Hunter is maximized as an off-ball weapon. And this is a big deal because he'll always be sharing the floor with one of Garland or Mitchell. Not only can both of those guys maximize his game, he won't take anything away from them. I actually think LeVert was an awkward fit with the Cavs for this exact reason. He's maximized as an on-ball guy, more specifically in the pick and roll, and that meant when he'd enter the game, the ball would run through those star players a little bit less, resulting in stretches where they almost felt iced out of the offense. Hunter won't be taking any of those touches away, and although he isn't nearly the on-ball player LeVert is, it's not like he's completely useless. Many defenses will respond to Hunter's off-screen action by simply switching, and sure, that takes away his space, but he's comfortable attacking mismatches. He's got a pretty nice face-up game with the ability to rise over the top or get into quick 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups, and against smaller defenders in particular, he likes to turn his back to the basket and bully them out of the post. Keep in mind that if Cleveland has him in starting and closing lineups, he'll often be drawing a team's 4th best defender, which might mean some easy mismatches for the offense to attack. In my opinion, Hunter's biggest weakness offensively, though, is that he really isn't a great passer, and I do view that as a pretty big downgrade from LeVert. Although, it's not like he's completely incapable of making quick and smart decisions. He's usually pretty sharp when it comes to making the right extra pass, and in off-screen or downhill situations, if he draws added attention, he's looking to find the open man. Within a Cavs offense that emphasizes ball movement and passes up good shots for great ones, there might be a bit of a learning curve, but I don't think he'll have much trouble fitting right in. So, in all totality, it's really as simple as this. The best offense in the NBA just added an efficient 19 point per game scorer, and he's a pretty seamless fit. He makes the team bigger and more athletic while keeping the spacing. He's capable of utilizing all 3 levels and generates free throws without taking the ball out of anyone's hands. And whether the Cavs decide to start him or bring him off the bench, I do think he makes them an even tougher cover come playoff time. As for the defensive side of the ball, I'm not quite as confident. Hunter came into the league as a highly touted defensive prospect, and once you have that reputation, it's sort of always there, so I feel like a lot of people just assume that he's a huge upgrade to the perimeter defense. And in some ways he can be. Going back to what I said about size and athleticism, these things matter a lot, especially when it comes to unlocking more lineup versatility. The Cavs would put out units that relied on Niang to play the 4, and I do think Hunter helps a lot there. He isn't much of a defensive playmaker or rim protector at all, but he's an active helper, and that 7'2" wingspan does make a difference when it comes to just simply clogging up driving or passing lanes. So as a 3 or 4, I feel pretty good about him. He's lengthy, strong, and has pretty good technique in isolation. He's also relatively switchable, which pairs nicely with how the Cavs like to use Mobley and Allen. However, he isn't quick enough to stick with a lot of guards and can struggle getting around screens at the point of attack, which does create some concerns when it comes to starting and closing lineups. Before getting hurt, Dean Wade was the starting 3, and Wade's one of the more versatile defensive forwards in the league with some legitimate 1 through 5 capability. If they plan to replace him with Hunter, now Garland and Mitchell are your 2 go-to defenders for opposing guards, which could turn out to be a pretty big weakness in certain matchups. I think some of that is mitigated by the fact that Mobley and Allen are both top tier rim protectors, but against offenses like New York or Boston that run a lot of 5 out, they could really be tested. So even though Hunter's a clear upgrade defensively from Niang, and arguably LeVert as well, the defensive impact at the team level will likely be determined by how the Cavs handle his rotation. I think they get slightly worse in starting and closing scenarios if he's on the floor over Wade, but I think they get a lot better during the in-between minutes due to the lineup versatility he brings to the table. I'm especially looking forward to the minutes that he and Wade share the floor together with either one of Mobley or Allen in the middle. Only time will tell how this move affects the team on both ends, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little adjustment period in the regular season. In my opinion though, this was very obviously a move for the playoffs. The league's best offense just got tougher to stop, and with each passing day, they look more and more like the team to be in the East. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of the Cavs. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.